Do you struggle with your vocal when mixing live band? It's there, but it's not clear, it's not defined, other stuff are in the way. Let me give you the best trick that I've ever got for your vocal to win the battle against the other mid-range instrument. Welcome to another live sound tip. If it's your first time on the channel, hi, my name is Guillaume. I'm a live sound engineer. I've been mixing band for the last 20 years, and this is what I talk about here on this channel. So if you are interested in that stuff, make sure to subscribe, ring the bell, you know the drill. Now that we get that part out of the way, let's talk about one of my best tricks that I've learned, especially when I'm using smaller PAs, when I'm in smaller environment. I know a lot of you church guy out there only have 1 or 2 speakers on stick to get a full band. This has been really helpful in many of those situations where the PA is on the edge of being loud enough, but because it's only 2 small bucks, everything just gets like mushy-washy. It's not enjoyable to listen, especially to the vocal. What we're going to use today is a tool that is in probably most console nowadays. If not, I have an alternative that is in most digital console. We're going to use a dynamic EQ. If you don't have any dynamic EQ on your console, you can use just a regular compressor. It's going to do kind of the same thing, a little differently. First, let me tell you what we're going to work with today. A stereo drum, a mono bass. I did a little bit of processing on this. A mono guitar, a stereo double track guitar, and a vocal. Hi, I'm the singer here. I didn't do much. The drums sound really good the way they are, so this is why I have no processing. Bass, just a little bit of compression. Mono guitar, absolutely nothing for now. Stereo guitar, nothing. And vocal, I did what I usually do. 1176 on the way in, a little bit of EQ for my voice. I'm using a Sennheiser 935. And a small amount of compression happening after that with a 160, just so it's there. For the purpose of this video, on my main bus, I also have a compressor, a limiter, but in a live situation, I would not suggest you to have that on your main bus. I basically just want the mix to be listenable at a fairly loud level for YouTube. Now, before we start mixing, putting a lot of plug-in on everything, let's analyze the situation that we are faced with today. Usually, in a small system, the amount of mid-range that you have is going to be limited to a certain SPL level that the speaker can deliver, limited by the range that the speaker can deliver. How can we interact with the amount of mid-range available for your vocal? Because mostly vocal is a mid-range instrument, even if there is some, higher Hesses, higher frequencies up there. Most of the energy coming from a voice is going to be in the mid-range. So how can we deal with that? How can we have a way to having the vocalist sing, having that being on top, but not taking away everything else? Not mixing your guitar down, because I've used to do that. You set your vocal, you bring your guitar down, you bring your keyboard down, you bring your backtrack down, and you mix everything around the vocal. It's a way to do it. I'm not going to say it doesn't work. I did that, like I said, for many, many years. Back in the analog day, if you were lucky enough to have that amount of processing available, it could have been done. It's not something that is new to digital. But now that we have almost unlimited amount of plugin at our fingertips, we can use those to our advantage. And now that we understand that our vocal is sitting in the mid-range, the other instrument that is mostly present in a band and also in the mid-range is going to be our guitars. Guitar amp are a mid-range instrument. Keyboard also have a lot of mid-range depending on the tone, but let's say a piano also have a lot of mid-range. Most of the time people play in the middle of the piano. They don't, have all the low end and all the high end and leave the middle of the mix sonically in the middle of the frequency, the note in the middle, open for vocal. But a way that we have now to open up that mid-range when needed, and let me really specific on the when needed part, is we can add dynamic EQ on some instrument. This will depend on the option that you have on your console and the plugin that you have on your console. Right now I'm using a Wing Compact, but you can definitely do this with any console. Like I said before, you can even do that back in the analog day. All you need to do is to either put a plugin on an instrument or put everything in a bus and put a plugin on that bus. I'm going to suggest you to go with the bus route if you have that available. If your console still has a group or a bus left, you take your instrument out of the main out and you send them into a bus, and from that bus you send it into your main, and there on that bus you apply a dynamic EQ. It's going to differ a little bit from console to console, but for today's demo, I'm going to take my guitar and I'm going to make sure that I do not send them into the main, both my stereo guitar, and I want to make sure that I send those into a bus. On the Behringer Wing, bus 9 and 10 are already set as groups, so we're just going to use those today. I'm going to make sure that my stereo guitar is being sent in bus 9, my mono guitar is being sent into bus 9. So far, so good. Now we're going to go to that bus, make sure that bus 9 that I'm selecting here is going to go into my main out 1. By default here it does, but again, depending on the console, it may or may not do this. If your console doesn't have a way to put dynamic EQ on your bus, I've been doing this back in the day with a compressor on a bus. On an X32 it was working just fine. You can do that again on every single console, analog, digital, because most console, let's face it, have compressor on bus. The thing that really matter here is you want to make sure that you have sidechain available on those bus. So let me give you example with both option. We're gonna do a compressor. I'm gonna use just a regular wing compressor, and the secret is to have a sidechain happening from your lead vocal, because let's face it, most of the time it's only a lead vocal or a bunch of lead vocal that you having a hard time with. If you run those into a bus on some console, you can do sidechain from a bus. On the Behringer Wing, you can sidechain a bus from a bus or a channel from a channel. So today for this example, we're going to use bus 10 as our sidechain. We're going to make sure that our vocal is going into not the main anymore, but it's going into bus 10. That's good. So this is how you would do it with a compressor. Let's say that you are doing this on my mono guitar. Example here, my mono guitar. I'm going to turn that on, and on the wing we have a dynamic EQ in the gate section. If I were to do this, dynamic EQ around 1K here, I want to make sure that my vocal is set as my sidechain. If I can, I want to make sure that I send that post fader. That way it's not going to affect the EQ that I set for that guitar. It's not going to affect the bus send for in-ears or for monitor. The mid-range of the guitar will not disappear for everybody else on stage or in the chain. It's only going to disappear into the PA. So on the wing, lucky enough, I can just select that, move my gate here at the bottom, or my dynamic EQ should I say, and that's going to leave my EQ, my compressor, my insert point, and my tap point unaffected by this, because you know, signal flow is going to go from top in that block and that block and that block and that block, and at the end, just before my fader, that dynamic EQ will only affect my guitar when the singer is giving me volume. Following so far? Don't worry, we're going to do a audio demo in a few seconds. That is how to do it on a channel, but let's go back to a bus, because we're going to do this on a bus, so we don't use, you know, 5 or 7 different dynamic EQ. We're just going to do that one time, because we only really need to do that one time. Once we mix everything together to send to our bus, we only want the lead vocal to be unaffected by the mid-range depth, so stick around, you guys will understand as soon as we do the video demo. You guys ready to hear me sing? This song is a joke, recorded only for the purpose of this video, and I made sure that those guitars are sonically in the way of the lead vocal. So let's take a listen. But first, let's solo a couple things. We have the drum here, the bass, mono guitar really in the middle, stereo guitar really wide, and I'm gonna mute the vocal for now and I'm just gonna listen to this. So that's the song. You know, putting vocal on top of that would be hard. This is why this is purposely done this way. So let me open my vocal and we'll see what's going on when I start to sing.
I'm just singing the song. It's for a demo here on YouTube.
I have plenty of volume. That's not a problem. You know, I'm getting really good level.
It's for a demo here on YouTube.
We're gonna start with a compressor.
I keep singing the song.
Can you see what I'm singing?
For this demo here on YouTube, it doesn't matter how good it sounds.
I'm gonna compress that a lot. Do you hear the guitar going down when I'm singing or talking into that microphone? Let's
I'm
listen.
just singing the song. It's for a demo here on YouTube.
I'm gonna exaggerate that.
Keep singing the song. For this demo here on YouTube, it doesn't matter how good it sounds or my singing is. I just need to keep singing and talking into the microphone until the song will start again.
You guys understand the idea here that when I'm singing, it's pushing down on the bus. Like if I was auto mixing, it's the same thing as if I was dropping down the bus when the singer is going, when the singer is giving you volume. It's compressing down on my mid-range bus, so that way there is nothing in the way of the vocal. If you are in a situation where you're having a hard time dealing with your vocal life, let's say that you have a too small of a PA, this is going to be a lifesaver because people live want to hear the vocal. Even if you're a guitar player in a band, I know it's going to be really hard on your ego, but next to the vocalist, people want to hear you. Next to the vocalist. Let's do the same thing, but this time I'm going to do it on the mono guitar with the dynamic EQ. But instead of being like a auto mix this time, because we're only cutting the mid-range, you will still hear the bottom end of the guitar, the high end of the guitar, but it will create a hole, a EQ hole for the vocal to go through that way. Let's listen to that. Just a mono guitar this time. And we're going to turn that on. I'm going to put the threshold really, really low, so it's really going to compress. But see how the guitar is not
singing the song.
See how the guitar is not going away?
It's for a demo here on YouTube. I keep singing the song. For this demo here on YouTube, it doesn't matter how good it sounds or my singing is. I just need to keep singing and talking into the microphone until the song will start again.
The attack and release on the dynamic EQ here or the compressor will influence the overall results, so make sure to play around with those. Make sure that you find the sweet spot for your band, for your song. With the dynamic EQ here, I really have a more precise adjustment because I can decide the amount of dB that I'm reducing, the mid-range of the guitar, and also the frequency. So to me, the dynamic EQ is a better option. It's also working with a compressor on a bus, but I think overall you get the idea. I hope it's gonna help you in tricky situation where your vocal having a hard time sitting on top. And on that note, I hope you guys gonna have a wonderful time mixing with that trick. Until the next one, I want you guys to please take care of yourself, and I see you all later.